Hello, everyone. We're so excited to be here today. Thank you for watching. We have a fun interview planned with Team thisABILITY. It's an adventure racing team that's actually in Ecuador right now. They're getting ready for a 96-hour race, so we're excited to chat with them before this all begins. We're pleased to announce that Choice Insurance Agency is now one of their official sponsors, and we're looking forward to getting to know the team members and help cheer them on before the race. When the opportunity arose for us to sponsor Team thisABILITY, it seemed like the perfect fit because their team's theme is actually realizing success by helping others realizing theirs. And that's right in line with what we do at Choice. By protecting people's present, we secure dreams. Before we get started, we want to take a minute to introduce you to everyone, starting with our marketing team, Kim Nelson and Lauren Swan. They'll be helping us with the interview today. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. We're so excited to be on this interview today. So this is going to be awesome.
I think so too. And Lauren?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to see and talk with you guys. I'm excited.
Good deal. And next, we also want to take a moment to introduce Team thisABILITY, starting with their captain, Chip Dodd.
Yes, my name is Chip Dodd, captain of Team thisABILITY. Going back a little bit to the name, because it sounds like disability, but it's thisABILITY. And like you said, our theme is realizing success by helping others realize theirs, because Andrea and I, in our day jobs, we support people with disabilities. So think things like autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, any type of developmental disability. And the way that we find that to be the most successful is to focus on what people can do and not get hung up on what they can't do. And so us being all in our kind of 40s and 50s, we of course have our own little ailments, but together as a team, we're able to overcome because we focus on what we can do in adventure racing. Mm-hmm. And I guess the rest of the team, let me introduce. We have on my right is Dirk Van Assendup. The cool thing is Andrea and I are kind of the co-captains of the team, but we have an international team of athletes. So Dirk has his own adventure racing team. Also Brian Gatens, he also has his own adventure racing team. And Andrea Anderson and I both race together. But when it comes down to international expedition linked adventure races, the community is very small. And so it's very frequently that people that normally would compete against each other or just we know each other on Facebook from doing races, we tend to come together and say, let's try to achieve this big goal. And believe me, Expedition Ecuador, or Huayna is the official name of the race, is going to be one of the hardest things that we have ever done.
I was dying to know how to pronounce the race, and I was afraid to do so. I knew I was going to butcher it. So can you pronounce it one more time for us?
I will try, and they can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Huayna.
Oh, wow. What a name. Well,
it's a mouthful.
And Ecuador, what a place to be. I did want to mention, thank you, first of all, for introducing the team. We can't wait to talk to all of you. And as we ask our questions today, feel free, each of you, to just jump in and whoever wants to answer as we go along, please do. And then just for everybody watching, as we mentioned, we're chatting with everybody from all the way from Ecuador. So there may be a slight pause or hesitation. Bear with us for any technical difficulties. I'm sure everything's going to run smoothly from here on out, but just look forward to a great interview going forward. Well, thank you guys again for introducing yourselves. I think I'll start with the first question, and you sort of touched on it a little bit already, but I'd like to ask it anyway. And then, as I mentioned, Kim and Lauren will continue after my question to start. So we would really like to know a little bit more about Team thisABILITY and how you got started.
Sure. Believe it or not, because we've not been adventure racing that long. We just got started in 2016. But the actual thisABILITY name and the team started off as a company benefit with my company. It's called Support Services of Virginia. And what we wanted to do is help our employees and our customers get outside and participate in some community activity. It doesn't necessarily need to be a sport. It could be something like a Relay for Life, to raise money for cancer. It could be, in Virginia Beach where we live, we have the polar plunge to raise money. And so any type of community event, we basically told our employees and our customers, we will pay for your registration fee. We'll give you a t-shirt. You're officially sponsored, but go out and participate in your community and be your best self. We didn't want the money, the $30 to go to the 5K or whatever, to hold people back from really being a part of their community. So that's how the team actually started. Actually, my first team name, it was actually my EO. When I met Rich Braun, we were in an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. And he asked me to do my first adventure race. So he's the owner of Choice, of course. And I was like, what is this adventure racing thing? So our team name was My EO, but then we transitioned over to thisABILITY as my company's benefit grew. And then I guess it really became an official team. We had an invite to the national championships. And up until then, I was racing solo most of the time. But then I needed to get a team because national championships is 3 people, and usually it's co-ed. There has to be one man and one woman on each team. And so all of a sudden I was like, it's official. We're getting the t-shirts, we're going in. And so that's really how the team got started. And of course we fell in love with the sport and have now taken it to an international level. We're competing for ourselves, and we're not trying to become, we could never be in the top in the world. We're actually doing pretty good in the United States rankings, but it's really about just pushing ourselves to live our best life, to be our best self, and to push our personal limits further than we ever thought we could go.
Wow, that's completely inspirational. It's exciting to hear about. Well, I know that Kim has a lot of questions, so why don't we start with her? Kim, you want to go first?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I have an idea about this whole adventure racing thing, but can you kind of give us an overview of what exactly is involved?
So one of the hardest things to do is to explain what adventure racing is. So sit back and take this one in. We are a team sport. So there's 4 of us on this team, race sometimes teams of 3 or teams of 2. There are solo categories, but usually not many. It is from 3 hours to 6 hours to 12 to 24, up to 10 days. It is a race in which teams have to move across the landscape. And along the way, we bicycle, we mountain bike, we trek, we paddle, we may be on ropes, we may be on caves, we may be up high, we may be down low, and we travel from place to place to place to get to checkpoints. We call them CPs, and we use only a map and compass to do that. So for example, the race that we're doing in Ecuador, with Helsinki, right, the force of the wind, most likely we'll get about 15 maps that we'll have to use over the course of the 96 hours. And we have to go from checkpoint to checkpoint using only a map and a compass. No GPS, no electronics, nothing. Along the way, we carry our food, we carry our safety gear, we carry all of our equipment. Most of the time, we do go to transition areas and pick up gear along the way, but it's us, maps, and the landscape, and good luck.
Wow. Okay, I am lost without Waze. So if you handed me 12 maps, there'd be some trouble. So it sounds awesome, but it also sounds very challenging. And I'm guessing it can get uncomfortable at times. So why do you do this to yourselves?
Well, I'll answer that first. It is the best way to find out what you're made of. But in addition to that, we get to go to places that are so amazing, usually so remote. Even when we're racing in our home states, the race directors take us to places that we've never seen before, and probably most of you have never seen before either. And so that is just amplified when you go overseas or you go to a different country, even a different state. You are in nooks and crannies of the wilderness that only the race director can, direct you to. So it's like a tour, kind of a wilderness tour, but it's just a wonderful experience.
I just want to add to that. The community itself, the adventure racing community, is amazing. Like, that's how I got to meet these guys. I played sports growing up. Of course, I played a lot of soccer, played semi-pro soccer, and there's a team element to that. But these guys have my life in their hands. That's a completely different level. It's a different level of a relationship that you have with people, and it's an amazing bonding experience.
I think the why for adventure racing for me is that I came to adventure racing after going through a lot of other endurance sports. And when I stumbled on the first race, I love the camaraderie. I love the people I race with. I love the challenge of it. It's very hardy, as you learn along the way. And I love the fact that it gets you to learn more about yourself. And there aren't many opportunities in today's world to do exactly that. So that's a big thing for me.
So I agree with everything they said. And on top of that, I believe when it comes down to just the human experience, you know, we have our day-to-day lives where you set little goals to do little milestones, but I think it's really healthy when all of us have a big, burly goal on the calendar. In business, we call it a BHAG, or a big, hairy, audacious goal. To be a proper goal, in my opinion, it's got to be a goal that you're not likely to achieve. Let's just call it 50-50 chance of success or failure. And then it's got to be a goal that's going to be hard. You're going to have to work towards it. Preferably, it's a team. So instead of just me running a marathon, our team has to get across the finish line of Waidasenchi together. If we drop a teammate, the team is disqualified. You can keep going, but you're unranked. You just, you paid your money, might as well go do it. We have to get each teammate member across that finish line. That's our main goal. So it takes months of preparation. It's going to take a lot of suffering. We're all going to go through highs and lows during this experience. But when you cross the finish line, it's like a burst of life. It's when I feel most alive. Even if you fail, even if you get on your third day and something happens and you've got to pull out of the race, you still have tried, and you've tried to accomplish something huge with people that are passionate about the same thing you're passionate about. So that would be my why. It's where I feel most alive.
That's very cool. So, and what, I know Andrea said that the races can really vary from 3 hours to, obviously you're in this 4-day nonstop competition. Why did you pick Ecuador?
Yeah, that's actually a fun story. There's a podcast that's an adventure racing podcast. It's called TA1. Like he said, transition areas, or when you go from one sport to the next, and it's a little area. And so the podcast's name is TA1, and legendary Randy Erickson is the host. And he usually goes around and he interviews different racers and gets their experience of different races around the world. And one of our friends, Luis Fernando Bekdash, if I pronounce that correctly, he's from Ecuador. He's done every Waidasenchi. He went to school with the race director, and he was interviewed on the podcast. And his love for Ecuador, love for the people, love for the terrain, the Andes Mountains are unbelievably beautiful. He described it as the New Zealand of the Americas. So when you think of Mordor in the book, when we were out yesterday training, we're seeing landscapes that are just unbelievable. There's nothing like it in the United States. And so that's what made me want to do it. It is kind of nice that it's a quick flight down versus like when we did Expedition Africa, that was on the other side of the planet. That's extremely just logistically difficult. So this one was logistically quite easy. But it's going to be one of the most challenging races that we've ever done because it's at high altitude. So we're coming in from sea level. All of us live within 500 feet of sea level. This race is starting off at 13,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, 13,000 feet. And I don't think we ever get below 8,000 feet or so. So the local teams have a huge advantage. That's why it's like we're going to do the best we can. But even Lewis, who's done this race every single time, has a 50-50 success rate of crossing the finish line. It's an extremely difficult race. And so if we do our goal of crossing the finish line, friends, healthy, safe, no injuries, it's going to be the biggest success ever for us.
A huge accomplishment. I can see that. Wow.
That is very cool. Well, I know you said logistically, Chip, that it was pretty smooth as far as getting there, but I have to ask because obviously the past year or so has been crazy, and we know, even domestic travel within the U.S. has, been thrown into a loop. Were there any crazy stuff that happened along the way? I mean, you've got all this gear, I don't know if you had to switch flights or what, but any memorable stops along the way?
I'll start off on our experience and then we'll let Dirk explain his experience. We flew Delta and everything went off without a hitch. Now it is complicated to get down here because we've got a bike our mountain bike that's in a bike box in the World Series races. They have a specific size bike box. So of course you show up to the airport and they look at you funny, like what's in the box and why, you know. And so you got to get through TSA. They normally give us a hard time on batteries and things like that. So we're carrying like, you know, a dozen batteries because we've got to go through 3 or 4 nights of 12-hour overnight. But we got through no problem thanks to TSA pre. And I know, Brian, you got through without trouble, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had 15 batteries in my backpack, and so you tend to get the extra special TSA screening where they want to know why you're carrying so many batteries on a plane. And the TSA guard, Eddie, was very nice, and we had a good conversation about why I wasn't a danger, and I was sent on my way. But we had a fun talk about that.
So Dirk, how did your flight go?
Well, the flight down was fine, except that my bike stayed in Atlanta. So
No.
we went to the airport the next day to pick it up, and there was still no box. Bike was still in Atlanta, which gets you really worried. Like, what has happened to this box? What has happened to this bike? Did the TSA open and decided this is not going to travel? The third day we went back to the airport, there was a huge language barrier. Unfortunately, I'm kind of embarrassed to say I don't speak any Spanish at all. And none of the guards at the airport spoke Spanish, and they couldn't explain to me why I couldn't go get my bike box. And after about an hour, finally the Delta rep came out and I was able to get my bike box, and I was absolutely relieved. And then especially when we brought it back here and we opened it up and the bike was all set and safe, that was a huge sigh of relief, which is also partly why I think we put a buffer in the front end, not only to get acclimated for the altitude, but to make sure if things like this crop up, we can deal with them. Because if it had been the day before the race, we would have been destroyed. Yeah.
And so when he says get acclimated, you know, we came in on the 12th or the night of the 12th, and then, you know, the race doesn't start until this coming Sunday. So we've been here quite a while to acclimate, but it does give us the opportunity to do a gear shakedown, which I guess that leads us to Andrea. We went on a bike ride, and how did your shakedown go?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just any bike ride. We rode our bikes all the way up to 13,500 feet, maybe a little higher than that, and rode all the way back down. A crazy, crazy fast downhill. That was so fun. We get down to the car, and my front shocks are gushing oil. It's kind of like it seemed like all the oil must have come out of my front shock, which I really don't know what that really means, but I know it's not good. But there's a team here, Lewis's team, and this is the adventure racing spirit too. They're another team competing in this race, but that we had met earlier, you know, Lewis and his teammate Pato, and they knew we needed to have my bike looked at and got us in touch with a local mechanic here. And that mechanic got the parts the next day. It was ready yesterday. He stayed open late because we were having a really difficult time with traffic in Quito. So an hour and a half later for him to stay open, we get my bike and it's in tip-top shape. And it is just honestly something that could not have happened at home. The parts were not to be found at home. And there's a lag in getting bikes fixed at home. So it just felt like a little bit of a good omen. So, and I'm so grateful to that other team for helping us there too. So, yeah.
If I could contribute to that. So as you build your understanding of adventure racing, we joke that the first part of the race is actually getting to the start line, that all of the work that has to go into getting us here is important. And alongside that, it's also something always goes wrong, whether it be a missing bike, whether it be my batteries, whether it be the shock braking. We're waiting for Chip's disaster. We're not there yet, but any moment it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah. It sounds like never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Yeah, we miscalculated the number of glow sticks we needed. So like on the way here, we're running into multiple stores trying to find glow sticks because it's mandatory equipment. So, but yes, getting to the start line, if you get there and you have all your gear and your whole team and everything is in place, it's like, yeah. At this point, executing the race is easy.
It's the easy part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the race starts Sunday, and I know you talked about, you know, finishing, everybody just, you know, finishing it, staying healthy, no injuries, all that. Are there any other goals for the race that you all want to share that you have? Any other kind of, you know, your vision for this?
Yeah.
Well, we want to remain friends. That's really important. You know, you get into some very stressful situations. And I know all of us want to handle those in a respectful way that we're proud of. And, you know, to accept help from others and to give help when we need to. And yeah, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think like with anything, and I'm sure at Choice you guys do the same thing where, you know, you put a big goal in the calendar, whether to grow into a new line of business or whatever, and you know, the leadership of Choice has to make a decision. Do we have the resources to accomplish this, or are we giving up something else to do this? And adventure racing is very, very similar to business. Sometimes Andrea and I will go into a race and we're saying, we're going for the top. We want to be number one in the co-ed division, or we want to be number one in the 3-person co-ed division, and we sign up teammates. They know they're in it to suffer. We're going to push hard. If we get injured, we get injured, but we're going to go until the injury occurs or until we're exhausted, but we're trying for the podium, and you just pull out the stops. In a race like this, especially after getting here and meeting some of the locals and meeting the race director, the Ecuadorian teams are some of the top teams in the world, literally. They live at high altitude. Extremely proficient, extremely experienced racers. Some of them started when they were young, when they were 12 years old, and they're already adventure racing and learning how to use maps. So this race is not one where we shoot for the podium. We have 0 chances unless everybody else falls off a cliff. So we came into this agreeing, it's like, look, we're going to go hard and fast and have fun. We're not going to get anybody hurt. We're not going to get anybody extremely sick. So we're going to push until pushing doesn't make sense. We want to do our best. We're going to go and achieve our race, our best possible race, regardless of what's happening with the other teams out there. So you can see how the difference is in the goals. If you're trying to go for podium, you care about all the other teams. In our situation, we want to have the best experience of our lives, and that's the goal.
I think the goal for me is first of all, I want to honor the effort of my teammates, right? We've all given up time expense, monetary expense to be here, right? So I want to make certain that my effort honors their effort in getting here. That's the big thing. The second thing for me is that we're the only team coming from the United States, that there's no other teams coming from, there's other national teams, but they're coming from like Colombia, they're coming from Central and South America. And so for the next 96 hours, we're going to be the United States to our fellow racers. And so we want to represent ourselves in the country well.
And I think for me, the last goal is just to make sure we take time to enjoy the absolute beauty and majesty of where we're going to be. Yes, it's going to be a lot of, oh, wow, look at that moments.
Yep.
And make sure we appreciate those.
Yeah, we're going to stop and smell the flowers of this race.
I think it's going to be great. You all are a fantastic team. So my last question is kind of twofold. During the race, is there a way, like, how do you keep track of how you're doing in the race compared to the other teams? And then how are the winners decided? What is that criteria?
Yeah, you going to get into that?
Yeah, so what's interesting is the fact that you never know where you truly are in relation to the other teams during the race. And so when something goes wrong, right, when you have a mechanical and you're delayed for a couple hours, or you go off route, because we will get lost, I promise you. You never know where they are, so you keep racing the entire time. And you may hear, like in a transition area, you may hear something about like, oh, these races left here 30 minutes ago. You don't know if they missed a checkpoint, if they got a checkpoint, you know, if they're feeling good, not feeling good, are they tired, have they slept? And so in many ways, we become a 4-person encapsulated unit for those 96 hours. Mm-hmm. And while we pay attention to the other teams, their progress doesn't really impact our progress. We go as fast as we can, for as far as we can, for as long as we can. And at the end of the race, where we end up is where we end up, which is a very weird dynamic for people who don't do adventure racing, because so many sports are score driven. How are you doing in relation to somebody else? Our effort is in relation to ourselves and nothing else.
Okay.
Also, on the way it's scored, it starts off with the checkpoints. So every race is different, but normally you get 1 point per checkpoint that we capture. So this is like we're looking in the woods for an orienteering flag. And then as we find those flags, we get credit. In this race, we're not allowed to choose which flags we're going to get. We basically have to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And the second we skip one, our score stops. We can keep going, but we're basically disqualified from the rankings. So other races, you can choose. There might be 90 checkpoints, and you can choose, well, that one's too far away. Let's skip that one and move on. That's usually how the United States runs their races. So the idea is that we're going to get as many checkpoints as we can within the 96 hours. So if a team skips a point, it doesn't matter how fast they are. They could end 2 days before we do, but as long as we have 1 point more than them, we win. So it's all about points first, time second. So who gets the most points in the least amount of time? So that's the way the scoring is. And then of course, there's some situations like if there was a team that has an injury and we stop to help and provide first aid or provide safety, we might get credited 30 minutes on our time and vice versa. Sometimes you get penalized. Like if you don't have some of the mandatory equipment, they might penalize you for 30 minutes. So there's also some bits of scoring on that, but hopefully we have a perfect race and nothing breaks and we don't get any penalties.
Exactly. We got our fingers and our toes all crossed and sending you guys great vibes. Lauren, I know you have some questions as well, some more things that we were very curious about.
I do. So I just love food, so I have to know, what do you guys eat and how do you guys eat during the race and how? Do you stop or?
It again varies from race to race. For this race specifically, we are going to expect that we're not going to see any opportunities to go to a restaurant or food or buy anything. So we have to pre-pack all of our food. And what I have done is I've broken it into 6-hour segments and I carry a bag with 6 hours worth of food. And one thing in adventure racing you have to do, and what was that? You have to keep eating. Even when you don't feel like it, you have got to keep eating because there is this thing called bonking. If you don't eat, you will run out of energy. And it has happened to me in races where you tell your legs to go and they don't go. It is the strangest feeling. You'll eat something and 30 minutes later, you'll get it and going. And you don't want to get to that point. So it's very essential that you have prepared for you food. And the other piece of this is you need to figure out what works for you. So my fueling style is different from theirs. I tend to eat more sweets, more carbs. And you got to figure out two things: what works for you and how can you consume this while you're moving? And so that's going to be really critical. And you can't survive off of 96 hours worth of bars or 96 hours of Snickers. You have to get variety in there and you have to get some real food in there as well.
It's also worth pointing out too that, the course is open. If you come across a restaurant or a deli or a market, you're allowed to leave the course to sit down and eat. And we've all done that in races. Like you will literally be cycling down the road and you'll see a restaurant. You'll stop and you'll get pizza and chips and soda and fries, and then you get back on the course, which is crazy to not imagine, right? But that's what we do. And I will tell you, finding a 3 a.m. quickie mart in the middle of nowhere that is still open, it's like finding heaven.
Yeah, I imagine. I can imagine. My eyes would light up as well.
It's amazing, right? And when it comes to food, the nice thing is we get to eat whatever we want. So you're allowed to have 3 slices of pizza, 2 empanadas, and 3 Cokes at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's a benefit.
Oh my goodness. You should have led with all of this.
Depending on how fast the team's going, you have to assume at a minimum you're burning 100 calories an hour, and probably at a top team racing at top performance, you're looking at 250 calories an hour. Almost everybody's carrying around a little bit of fat, and your body can consume its own fat during the race. But like Dirk said, it's real easy to bonk if you're not taking in enough calories. I can't eat gluten, so I've got to source gluten-free food at different places. But luckily, we're in the, we didn't say this when we first got involved, but we're in the Quito area, which is like the main city, just on the outskirts of Quito. So there's grocery stores and the equivalent of a Whole Foods. So I was able to find gluten-free bread. So I think Dirk's done the same. They make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because you put them in Ziploc bags and they last for days. If I could find gluten-free pizza, I would buy a full pizza. I'd put 2 slices together, so it's like a sandwich, put it in a Ziploc bag. That would last a day or two. So you try to get some real food in there, and then you got the energy bars or the gels, and you want a very wide array. You want chocolate and sweet, you want nutty, you want fruity, peppermint. It's beef jerky, like anything, because whatever you have, you don't want. So I'm like, hey, Dirk, I want some of your chips, and then he'll ask me for beef jerky or whatever. So it's pretty much a lot of food, and if you're able to do it while you're walking.
We did a race in Scotland where my team purchased 30 McDonald's cheeseburgers before the race, wrapped them up and put them in our pack.
Oh, wow.
30 and 4 days later, guess what? They were still fine. So think about that next time you have McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
We've heard that story before, haven't we?
Right, we all right.
And then one other small thing we forgot to say at this race, because each race is different, at the transition areas, they're going to have hot water, like boiling, or the ability to, so if you had oodles and noodles, or if you have a freeze-dried food, if we want to eat in the transition area, which that takes time, like you're faster if you get in and get out. But let's say we're really cold and we're wet and team morale's down, we could stop and then get boiling water and rehydrate some food, and then really sit back there and relax and warm up and then leave. So, but it still has to be quick, and but they are providing hot water in this race.
Okay, that's interesting. You kind of just touched on it, but how do you guys stay hydrated?
That's more essential than eating. If you really wait till you're thirsty, you've waited too long. It's really hard to catch up. So, entrees every 30 minutes, you got to drink something. It is difficult to carry enough water. So what we carry with us is water purification systems. So I was
wondering.
UV light, so we can source water out of the stream. We're going to make sure it's clean with UV and filter it. We all carry enough water during the race, and we carry a method to disinfect that water. And I actually end up mixing a lot of Gatorade in to get flavor, because I don't like water, but you got to drink water. I'm mixing Gatorade, and then I'm drinking a lot of Gatorade, of course. Yeah, filtering is crucial.
Okay.
Critical. He mentioned the Gatorade. You can't just drink water. You will deplete your salt and your electrolytes, and that's another thing that many racers forget to do. Drink a drink and they're not taking some type of electrolyte replacement. My preference is like pills. So like about every hour or so, I'm going to take pills. Depending, we're going to be cold in this race, so I'm not expecting to be sweating a lot. If we were in Virginia in summer where it's 95 and humid, I'm going to probably be taking a pill every half hour, a pill, because I'm drinking liters and liters of water, which is depleting. So that's another big part of the strategy, is sourcing water and then keeping your electrolytes and your salt properly.
That's cool. I would only think that, you would have to worry about just being hydrated with water. So it's good to know that you have to add other things in as well to keep your stamina going during the race. And it is 96 hours long, which is quite some time. When do you take time to sleep?
So ideally, first off, the first night we usually don't sleep at all, not a wink. The next night, night 2, ideally, we'll find a place that's suitable for sleeping in the witching hours that are usually between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. That's when your mind gets a little bit crazy, and it's when usually we really need some sleep. But oftentimes that's the coldest or the wettest. So we will either sleep when we find a place that seems optimal and get maybe, half an hour, hour and a half, maybe the second or third night, maybe a whole 3-hour chunk. But if we don't find an ideal setting, then it usually comes to where like one or more of us are not really functioning great. Either we slow down so much that we might as well be sleeping anyway, and we sleep right there and then, and we'll just pull out our survival blankets and nestle in alongside the trail or duck in the bushes and just take a few minutes. And you'd be surprised at what 15 minutes can do for your mental state and for your physical body to just get up and get going. So that's what our plan is.
Yeah, one of the things she didn't mention is we kid around and we call it sleep monsters. And so it's usually on day 2, we start losing, and each person has a different response to that. It depends on how much sleep did you have going into the race or how much effort did you put forth. But at some point during this race, we are literally going to be visualizing like a movie playing in front of you. And it is 1 minute, there might be pyramids. The next, there's monkeys howling at you. The next, there's brains floating in the water on the paddling section.
For the record, I've never seen brains during a race. I just wanted that to be clear.
That was her.
Somebody's got a vivid imagination.
I'm not a brain guy in many ways, but definitely not that one.
So in this race specifically, the paddle section's early in the race, so I'm not worried about being on the water and falling asleep and getting in the water. The bikes are most dangerous, or the ropes section, if we're doing rappelling or rock climbing or via ferrata, we're traversing on the ropes. We don't want to be hallucinating and doing rock climbing, right? Because you die.
Makes sense.
Also, mountain biking. If you're riding down a hill going fast, and this is rocky, gnarly, raw Ecuador. This is not a safe, mountain bike trail. So we don't want people hallucinating and falling off their bike. And so we have to make a strategic decision. Maybe we want to get an hour's sleep before this bike ride because we're hallucinating or something like that. The other thing is the navigators. Dirk and I are the navigators. If you have your navigators hallucinating, game over, you got to stop because you don't want to get lost. It's not worth it. So sleep is a huge strategy, which is absent in most sports.
I can't imagine not sleeping for 24 hours in the beginning of a race. That just seems so intense.
It does indeed. It does indeed. I know you mentioned it earlier, so this is going to be you for kind of because you don't know where you rank with the other people in the race. So since you are technically traveling alone, how do you guys stay safe in the wilderness?
So we have a variety of safety protocols are in place. And first things first, most of us are wilderness first aid certified, right? So in the event of injury of some sort, we have the baseline knowledge to stabilize the person that's hurt and then call for help. Along the way too, we carry a variety of electronic devices on us, like GPS trackers with SOS buttons. Our cell phones are usually sealed. They're sealed inside these packages. We can break open the call if we have to. And the race itself has a wide variety of protocols in place. Emergency personnel to respond, and probably the helicopter ready to come and get us.
Okay.
So our safety, safety is a relative term, right? And it's I would say it's with a little bit of intensity from time to time.
And also, sorry.
I was just going to say, there's probably higher risk of us crashing in a car and flying than getting hurt out in the wilderness.
Yeah, driving in Ecuador is way more dangerous than race racing. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things he didn't mention, in this race specifically, the race director is giving us a walkie-talkie. Now, we're not allowed to use it unless it's an emergency. But they have, this tracker that he was talking about is pinging our location at all times. It doesn't help us navigate, but it does let the race director know where we are and what our team's doing. They can tell if we're stopped, they can tell if we're moving, they can tell what direction we're moving in. And so they can strategically place their resources so that as we're moving along the course, if we call for help, they've got somebody within walkie-talkie distance hanging out on the top of a mountain, waiting on a team to have a problem. And all of the teams, like I was a little worried doing this race, especially with safety, do they speak English? Because if I'm saying I have somebody with a broken need help now, but this race director has thought about that, and every one of his safety crew that's on the walkie-talkies has enough English that can get by to get emergency services to us. So it's probably the safest type of outdoor adventure you can do because it's a World Series race. This race director is getting hurt, the whole world's watching, so they've got to execute this flawlessly.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that there's plenty of safety precautions are taken, so you guys aren't out there alone. For another thing you all ever experienced during a race?
Yeah. So I had the top two. One was we were in Scotland, in the Highlands, way up north, middle of the night, and our teammate was going hypothermic. We were in a small town called Kinshallou in Scotland, and we had to break into is a strong word to use, but we had to get our way into a community bathroom. We had to take refuge in a bathroom overnight in Scotland. It's a really glamorous sport, as you can tell. The second part was we were doing a race in Wilmington, Delaware, and my teammate and I were coming across the shoreline in a beautiful banquet hall was there, and there was a bride taking photos from her wedding. And she saw us and she called us over. We got into the photos for her wedding. So we looked like we got shot out of a cannon.
Oh, that's
beautiful. Great photos. She sent them to us. She's very nice. Yeah.
That's nice. That's definitely a memorable moment.
Exactly.
So I guess I'll go next. One of my most surreal, we were competing in Expedition Africa, which occurred in the Mauritius Islands. One of those islands is called Rodrigues. It's a little volcanic archipelago, and it's about 12 kilometers by like 8 or 9 kilometers. It's very small. It was getting dark. We were hallucinating. We were giggling and we're losing it. Mentally we're losing it, but we're having fun. You feel like you're drunk a little bit. And it starts to rain. It's dark. It's windy. And on Rodrigues Island, it's like everybody's dogs bark, 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 right? we can't find a place to sleep. I mean, it is like windy and raining and dogs, and we tried to hunker down behind a little wall, and we couldn't really sleep there. It was very rocky. But the next segment of this course was a cave. And one of the checkpoints was inside this cave. And it was a cave where you go down and you go across for a really long time and back up. And then we got down in the cave, and about halfway through, it was like there's kind of a flat area. And I was thinking, it's warmer than outside. There's no rain. There's no light. There's no dogs. I was like, why not sleep in a cave in Africa? Like, who gets to do that? And sure,
okay.
down, we slept for an hour in this cave, and it was like the best sleep I've ever had. And then the most fun, as a team starts coming in behind us, because this is like 3 days into the race. So I'd say like an hour and a half later, a team comes in, and I kind of hear them, and they don't know we're there. So I kind of wake up, and I waited until they come around the corner. I'm like, and they're like, what was that? What was that? It was like just so much fun to be in a cave in Africa sleeping.
That's funny. That is pretty cool.
I guess it's my turn. And the same race, Expedition Africa, started off with a sailboat start. And so all the teams were paired up with a local sailor who was basically telling us what to do. We'd never done it before. These boats were big wooden boats, and the mast was also big and wooden. And you would need to lift up the mast and move the sail over to the other side to tack. So we're going like this, trying to beat the other racers. And, you know, we're having near collisions with all of these other sailboats. And it gets to be really, really to where you just cannot make a mistake. So for some reason, we changed roles, and I could not get the rope to come down at the right moment. And our fourth teammate behind me kind of jumped over me and slammed his foot down on the rope. And I wish I could explain this better, but it was a moment when all of us gelled, and we all knew, like, something's going wrong. Someone has to save the day. We all have to, like, work together. And he got that rope undone, and we got the sail going the right way. And we did not capsize like some of the other teams. And it was just like such an adrenaline-filled like moment. It was really crazy. Yeah.
I think every race has its moments. I mean, we could probably spend the rest of the time talking about our race experience. They're all phenomenal. We did a race recently with a team. We were really unprepared for the cold weather. And as we were biking through a town, we stopped to get something to eat at a Subway. And one of my teammates was just really hypothermic. He was shivering and shaking, didn't have enough clothes. So I look across the way, there's a Dollar General store. So we went to the Dollar General store, and the only clothing we could find were women's yoga pants. So we ended up buying yoga pants and putting them in women's yoga pants, and that warmed him up, and he got through the race, and he finished.
It worked.
Yeah.
And for my last question, if someone, anyone, maybe myself, wanted to start an adventure racing, what advice would you give them? Where could they start?
So the best thing to do is go to Google and type in United States Adventure Racing Association. And that is the national organization that works with the entire country. And from that website, there's local and regional chapters of adventure race organizers that you could begin to hook up with. It's a very, very beginner-friendly sport. We like new racers. We enjoy seeing the success that people have. So I think that's a really strong way to start, to do that. And then also in your local area, there are orienteering races, which are like adventure racers. There's maps and there's checkpoints. There's usually no cycling and there's no paddling. That's another great place to start also.
And think of it also, I guess running is the best analogy. Like somebody that wants to get into running, they could start with a 5K. And maybe it takes 30 minutes, maybe it takes 45, but you literally could walk it and end, and you get your banana and your t-shirt and you have a great day. And adventure racing has that same equivalent. Usually it's about 4 to 6 hours. In adventure racing, instead of it being just one sport, you got to have at least 3 sports plus the map and compass. So you need about 4 hours to do like 1 hour each for a little bit of time in transition. But the race director knows if people are participating in a 4 or 6 hour adventure race, they're brand new to the sport. They may not be in the best health. Maybe they don't run very much. Or they haven't trained a lot. Maybe their bike isn't a very high-end bike. They don't have a lot of experience. So they make the race very easy. And then as you progress into anything over about 15 hours to 24 hours, you better know what you're doing. You're going to get your clock cleaned. When Rich and I, with Choice, when Rich and I did the race, Rich is ambitious. he's like, we're going big or we're going home. And instead of picking the 6 or the 12 hour, he picked the 24-hour Shenandoah Epic, which is like one of the hardest races on the whole East Coast. You know, I got my butt kicked. I think he kind of got his butt kicked. And that was probably not the best decision for my first adventure race. And then just like with running, if you get into the 100 milers and the ultra runs, it's a completely different sport. And so that's what we're doing is we're doing these big World Series races that are minimum 3 days, if not 5. You've got to really have the experience to do these races because you can really get hurt. You have to know what you're doing. The race director puts you through. You have to show that you know what you are doing. You might have to demonstrate rope skills. You have to demonstrate navigation skills. In Expedition Oregon, we had to demonstrate that we could get out of our pack raft and get back in without assistance because they knew you could die on this rapid if you don't understand how to pack raft. So that's but for you guys who would like to get involved in adventure racing, go to USARA. Like he said, there's a race calendar, there's a map. You can find a race near you. Just go for something that's less than 10 hours and give it a shot. And it's a lot of fun. And like they said, the community is amazing. And so they're very helpful and they answer your questions, no problem.
Yeah, well, I started to say, it sounds like it's a great way to explore and try it out if you're a beginner. But it's also a great sport for long-term goals in life in general. And I love the idea of the team that you guys are building and the camaraderie, not just with yourselves, but with others around you as you go. It's been very fascinating. I think we might have lost Lauren. She is just sent me a quick text saying that her computer is crashing, so she may not be able to hop back on. But again, just want to thank Lauren and Kim for your questions. And thank you guys for all of your amazing information about this. I learned so much today. We're really, really appreciative of the time. And we're excited to partner with you guys and support your team. It's going to be a great journey as we move forward. We're looking forward to do more videos with you. Would love to do some social posts as well and keep our fans and followers up to date. And just continue to follow all your racing adventures. Chip, I'm sure that our fans and our followers would love to learn more about Team thisABILITY. Where can they go to get more information?
Sure. We are very active on Facebook. You can probably tell by our ages. That's our preferred social media. So if you look up thisABILITY Racing on Facebook, you should see the same kind of logo that we have on our shirts. And currently, we are documenting our experience for this Wide Ascension race from the training all the way through what we've been doing day to day here in Ecuador to train. We're going to be GoProing during the race. So we have a friend named Craig Cook in New Zealand, actually, that's going to be following our dot on the map. And he's going to be updating our fans and everybody at Choice on how we're doing. And he's really good. If we're having trouble, he'll know it. Just by our little dot moving across the map, he'll know what's going on. But then after the race, we're going to be filming the after party and some of the fun and meeting the teams. What we want to do, and that's why we're so glad to partner with Choice. We really appreciate you guys partnering with us. We want to inspire people to be their best self and to go bigger than they ever thought they could go and to be the best person they can be. So by us documenting this experience, even if somebody doesn't want to participate in one of these races, they can at least see mentally, visualize what it's like to prepare for one of these big goals on the calendar. And this information is applicable to just about any other thing that somebody would like to do. But we just, so definitely go on our Facebook page and follow along with us. Also, we have a YouTube page, which is thisABILITY Adventure Racing on YouTube. And so on Facebook, we have short videos. We try to keep it a minute to a minute and 30 seconds. So it's quick because, people's attention span on Facebook is swipe fast. On YouTube is the full length version of our videos, which they're edited down. But if somebody's really interested in a topic, like what Dirk was talking about with sleep strategy or nutrition or the why, we have a full length video on there with each racer's perspective on each of those topics. I highly suggest again, even if you've never went to a race, watching this, I think, is inspirational, help people really be their best self.
That's great. And your website, can you repeat that again if they want to check out your website?
We do have a website. It's, I believe, thisabilityracing.com.
Yes.
Yeah, thisabilityracing.com. And
how about a handle? Do you have a social media handle if they want to tag you or if we want to tag you?
Yeah, I think it's hashtag thisabilityracing. right?
Or Team Disability.
Or
We
Team
use both.
Disability, we use both. And then, so that definitely on Facebook, that should pop us up to the top. Eventually we'll do some stuff on Instagram and some of the other younger social medias, but right now we're getting mostly Facebook and YouTube. We do have our bios on our website, so you can see the bios of all the teammates that we've had over the years. Again, we've raced with South Africans, and we have races coming up. I think that's probably one of your questions. We have the national championships coming up in September. Like, we get back, and then we get back on an airplane a week later to go to the national championships. So different teammates are going to be racing there with us. Next year, it's in Wisconsin, and we've never raced up there. And then the team will be, after that, we're going to be going to Expedition Africa again, in a country called Lesotho, which is inside South Africa. It's kind of like the Vatican is inside Italy. Lesotho is a tiny country inside South Africa. It's the highest country in the world, average elevation. It has a ski resort in Africa, which is where the race started. So that maybe if they let us in the country, yeah, if they let us in the country, because of course COVID is a little bit out of control over there. That's in April, and then if COVID lets us, we're already signed up to compete in the World Championships in 2022 in Paraguay. So we're really excited about that. So those are our big races.
Wow.
And every year, as a training shakedown, we do the Florida C2C race, which we start on the Gulf side of Florida. They just drop you off. They give you your map when you get on the bus. 2.5 hours later, they drop you off somewhere on the coast, and you got to make your way back to St. Augustine over the what is it, 72 hours? Mm-hmm. So we do that race every year, kind of as an expedition shakedown to prepare us for some of these bigger races. So you guys will have a lot of fun following along with us. We will. Our new shirts have the Choice logo, so we're going to proudly wear those shirts. Hopefully on the.
Yay! Love that. Thank you. It sounds like it's definitely going to be exciting to stay, continue to follow and to stay on track with you guys. You're definitely not only adventure racers, you're adventure travelers, and that's exciting to see. Well, also just wanted, again, thank you guys so much for your time. And also, for those that are watching, if you'd like to learn more about getting the right coverage at the best price with Choice Insurance Agency, you will have a scan, or we'll have a QR code that you can scan at the end of this video. And it's really easy to use to scan to get multiple quotes 24/7. Or you can call 855-INSURED to speak with one of our trusted advisors. And I think that wraps it up. Team Disability, good luck on the race.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are cheering you on.
We'll be sure to post the results, and it was a pleasure to meet you all. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
We definitely want to thank the entire team at Choice and Rich. I gotta make him proud. He's the guy that got me into this stuff. So I hope we won't disappoint him there. And then absolutely after the race, we would love to connect with you and tell you what experience we had. No matter what, it's going to be unbelievable. It might be unbelievably hard. It might be unbelievable amazing. It might be unbelievable beautiful, but I guarantee you it will be unbelievable, and we can't wait to tell you about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Safe racing.
Thank you.